Look, I think on fracking and nuclear energy, my view is that the debate is not complete on that there needs to be a much bigger and detailed debate on it. My big fear, and this is why I'm saying that we need to, when we learn the lessons from the United States, we should look at what we're doing in South Africa as well. My very, very big fear is that there are a whole lot of vested interests in nuclear energy, people who are going to benefit from nuclear energy. And therefore, we need to debate the thing very carefully. We need to look at, the debate must be opened. It must be very clear. And it mustn't be done from the perspective of people who are going to benefit from the nuclear energy. My very big fear at this point in time about government is that there are some sections of government that's rushing to go and sign nuclear deals. That's my fear. And I'm saying that when we look at, what's happening in the United States, we should bear in mind what could happen in South Africa. I would be very, very worried if we signed deals to build nuclear power stations without a major, major public debate on it, an informed public debate. And that's why, again, I should have done this right at the beginning, is to congratulate NSTF for organizing this discussion, because these are the kinds of discussions that we need to have all over the country, so that we ourselves take informed positions on that. I don't want to make any comments on the coal industry right now. I'm not an energy expert, but I am really worried about the degradation of the climate and the earth as a whole. And so I think that organizations like this should take the lead in having these debates. That's really the point that I want to make. On the question of evolution and creation, for me, there's no debate. No, I don't accept the idea that there isn't evolution. I know that, and again, I think that the point I want to make is that these issues have to be discussed openly, and we have to raise them in the most awkward places. And we have to challenge people to start thinking about these issues. So, I come from a Muslim family, okay? Now, I know that Muslims have a huge problem with evolution. But the scientific evidence is so overwhelming that there's a large section of Muslims that are beginning to accept it. But often they get very worried about it, because that challenges fundamental concepts. So I've seen some of them, they accept evolution, and then they create an artificial point somewhere, and they say that thereafter God created man. So they create an artificial break in the thing in evolution. But we had this debate in South Africa not long ago, just the other day. A prominent South African in Parliament somewhere got up and said he's not a descendant of a monkey. That was his contribution to the debate. What nonsense. So what I'm saying is that we really have to raise these issues, and we have to discuss them openly, because science is not just about developing the latest technology. Science is about challenging our beliefs. Science is about challenging society, not always, but to behave in a rational way. And we've got to start doing that. That's the point I'm making. I don't necessarily agree with everything that was said early this morning. I think the picture that was created was that there is a right-wing movement, a populist movement all over the world, and that Trump, is a reflection of this thing. I think that may be true, but I think one needs to go a little further back to find out why there is the populist movement happening. I I don't think we've got the space to unpack it all now. But what we've had in the last few years, more rapidly than we've had in the years before that, are a whole lot of economic crisis that's happened. And very often, the crisis has not been the creation of poor, ordinary people who suffer the crisis. The economic crisis, the last one in 82, 85, was started by the Americans when they were subsidizing all the banks, and when they were selling the home loans on a mass scale and people couldn't pay home loans. They initiated a huge, big crisis. And partly what's happening in America now is because of the crisis that happened at that particular time. That had a ripple effect on all of us in the whole world, all over the world. So I think part of the response to that crisis, that economic crisis, and I'm neither an economist or a political scientist, but I suspect that part of the response to that crisis that has gone through the world has been this right-wing backlash. Okay? In other periods, the response to the crisis has been a left-wing backlash. The left, unfortunately, and I'm displaying where I come from now, are not as organized as the right wing. That's the big difference. We've not been able to take the crisis and use it as the right wing has been able to do. So I think that in this morning's paper, the good professor should have gone a few steps back to look at the origin of the crisis, so that would give us a better opportunity to understand it. Okay, look, I'm not going to enter into the debate about whether we are all, social and spiritual people. That's a personal view, and many people have that and others don't. But I want to say again that I don't think that that the paper this morning went back far enough to look at the crisis. On the question of how we get the general public involved in the debate. Now, we come from, and I know I'm biased, but we come from one of the most wonderful countries in the world, really. One of the most wonderful countries in the world. If you think of the oppression that we had to overcome in order to get a democracy, then you can't help but be really excited by it. Okay? Now, just take one small issue out of that. And I'm coming back to the AIDS issue now. Okay. The president, even though he's denying it now, at the time denied that there was a relationship between the virus and AIDS. Okay? What did we get out of that? Did we get people sitting on their hands asking, what are we going to do now? No, they didn't. We had a wonderful organization called the Treatment Action Campaign. Okay? They got off their backsides, they went to organize. Of course, they came from the tradition that all of us come from, a tradition of struggle. They knew what we had to do, and they did it. It's because of them that the position on AIDS changed. So if you want to know what to do, look at the history, the very recent history and the history before that. We've done it before. We can do it. If we want to involve people in this thing, we know how to do it. It's not a big issue. You must raise the issue wherever you are. You have to have meetings where people don't usually have meetings. You have to go everywhere to discuss this thing and debate it. And if necessary, you have to start small organizations that become big organizations to take the debate. I think the points that were made that I didn't touch on, about manipulating data and all that. Look, I thank you. I think one should have looked at all of these things. Because I think what's happening now is that part of the crisis is that in each element of this crisis, things are going to happen. The way people manipulate data, the false news that's going out and so on. And we have to be aware of that all the time. I came across an article the other day by Professor Salim Abdul Karim. You know, he does a lot of work on AIDS and so on. And he was saying that just a few weeks before that, he'd come across a fake news item in which it was reported that, you know, the virus was manufactured in a laboratory and that it was a secret weapon to wipe out the African race. Now, I'm quoting him because he wrote that in an article. So I think the question of fake news and fake ideas are springing up all over. And I suspect what's happened with Trump is that other people who in the past would not have said absurd things are now going to have much more freedom to say it, because they reckon that if, you know, the President of America can talk such nonsense, then they can as well. And I'm sure that's going to happen on the right wing, in the right wing political dimensions as well. Khalib, I think that we failed in not taking up the issue of Turkish intellectuals. I think when I say we, I think that the academic community in all our universities, they should take the lead in that. They should have known what's happening, and they're the ones who need to lead with the solidarity in relation to that. They really have a responsibility to do that. Because when we suffered under apartheid, there were large numbers of academics who supported us, and this is our turn to go and show this support to them. I hope I've touched on all the questions that were asked. If I'm not, we can have a discussion at lunchtime. Thank you.